tonight's demo is how to do trees, foliage on trees, and I'm using fall foliage to demonstrate this because of all the colors, using a Filbert brush, okay? We've done flat brushes, slip slap in the corners, and that can be a challenge. I know I struggle with it sometimes. And we've done the corner of, or using a fan brush, right? Tapping that corner, and that works really well once you get the hang of it. But I was watching some other artists demonstrate how to do foliage with the Filbert brush. And we don't use our Filbert brush very often, but we have one in our one-stroke paint brush sets. And I thought, what a great way, and it just really can look very realistic if you get the hang of how to do it. It took me a few tries to get it right, but I'm excited to share it with all of you. So I'm gonna get to my overhead camera here, and we're gonna get started on that. Whoops, where's my mouse? There we go. Okay, so let's come over here. Ooh. There we go. All right, so here is the tree. This was my demo piece. So I want you to see, I'm going to paint this whole tree, and it's going to take a little while, but I think you're going to love the results. So I want you to see how the tree is laid out. It has kind of bulging areas of where the branches are. So it's very easy to just create kind of a pyramid triangular shape, and so you have to go outside those lines to get it to look more realistic. And when you're using that Filbert brush, you're going to be very lightly loading it, hardly any paint, but we're going to be tapping the brush down and pulling slightly every time you do it. And that's what gets, if you can see those, that's what gets those really cool little strokes that look like leaves hanging off the branches, okay? So let's get started. I got lots of colors sitting here ready to come out, and we're going to load up the plate here. So I'm going to get my foam plate, and I'm going to set that aside. So I'm working with fall colors. So we need our trunk colors first. Thank you. I think you're going to like this. You guys have to try it. So I'm going to put out some burnt umber and some burnt sienna for my tree. And the burnt sienna is going to play into the foliage a little bit too. I'm going to put a little bit of green down. This is classic green. And we're going to need a little bit of licorice to help darken some of our branches. So black, licorice. And then we have our foliage colors. Okay, so I'm going to put out some Pueblo, some pure orange. You don't need a lot of these colors because they're put on in layers. We've got moon yellow, a little bit more of that. There we go. And finally, I'm using cardinal red because I wanted a deeper red for the fall colors. Normally we would use apple red for a bright red, but this is a little bit deeper, okay? And then I'm going to put out some wicker white to highlight some of the branches and some of the leaves, and a little bit of floating medium to help me move my trunk. Okay, so that's a lot of colors going around the wheel. So let's get going. I'm going to put that right where I can see it. I'm going to take a 16 flat to start with. All right, and I'm going to come over here and pick up, there we go, pick up this, well, first of all, let's flatten these out. Pick up burnt umber and burnt sienna. Okay, so I'm just double loading between those two colors. I'm going to try to be better. My husband's been working on all my videos to put up on my YouTube channel, and he says your hand keeps getting in the way. So I'm going to try to be better about my hand not getting in the way with my strokes. Okay. All right, so let's get some medium on that 16 flat. Okay, so thinking about the shape of this tree, let's come up just a little bit higher. There we go. Okay, so we've got a trunk, and the trunk width is going to be right like about that wide, so it's about a brush and a half. That might be a little bit too wide, but that's okay. So we're going to just get our size of our trunk and then stroke in between just to get that going. All right, and I'm thinking this is kind of like an oak tree, at least from the, or maple tree, excuse me, not an oak tree, with all the colors. When I was living in Michigan, we had beautiful fall colors on a maple tree across the street from my house, and I just loved looking out my front window and seeing those colors. Okay, so here, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come from this side, and I'm going to stroke loosely up to as high as I want that tree to be. Okay, most of these branches are going to be hidden, but they're going to primarily be guiding me to get the shape of my tree. Okay, so let's come back down here. We're going to kind of fill that in, and then I'm going to start branching out. Okay, so we're going to have a branch that comes out like that, and maybe this one is just a little bit lower. And we're going to start to build the pyramid, and I'm just up on the chisel edge of my brush, pulling these branches. I don't need my script liner for this, but when I come in after to reinsert the branches, I'm going to use the script liner, okay? And we're going to come up here and branch off. There we go. That's kind of thick, but I'll pull this way. Cross your branches over. Don't make it look like a scarecrow or something with all the legs and arms sticking out, right? It looks better if you can cross the branches. Okay, so see how I'm doing that? This got a little thick right here, but don't worry about that because we're going to cover that up. So, all right, so we're coming from this side now. We're going to go up just kind of in between these two. And I'm just sputtering the end of the tail end. I'm lifting my brush away and just sputtering these little branches to kind of fill that in. Like I said, most of this is going to get covered up, so this is primarily for placement. Okay, so that's the shape of my tree. Okay, now we want to have a top to our tree, and it looks better if it's not straight lined up with the very top of the trunk. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So now that I've got this all stroked in, I can come back and kind of clean up, especially down here where it's going to show. Okay, so that's a basic tree. Now, I'm going to clean that brush, and I want to just show you real quick with a pencil. Let me come down just a hair. Okay. Hi, Pam. Okay, so I'm going to have the top of my tree right about there. All right, so hopefully you can see that. And then this side is going to stick out this way. Maybe not quite that far. And then you're going to have another part that sticks out there. All of this will be in the middle. Okay. So that'll kind of give you the framework for the tree. You're going to have gaps where it comes in and out. And you're going to have areas that cross over the trunk of the tree, the main base. But see how the top of this is up and slightly to the right, and then you might have a little break right there. Okay, and let's not necessarily bring this out quite so wide. So that prevents you from getting that kind of pyramid. It's off, it's kind of asymmetrical. It comes out there and goes in and out, in and out, in and out. Okay, so if you can do that to help yourself stay in control, that you will benefit from that. Okay, all right, so now what I want to do is I'm going to get some medium on this 16 flat again, and I'm going to get some of this burnt umber, and I'm going to come up here and just kind of fill in dark roughly. So medium, burnt umber. This dark is going to help us see all those pretty light colors, okay? So I'm going to go right over the trunk. Not all the way out to the edges though. This is, you want it dark in the center. Okay. And I'm grabbing just a little bit of that burnt sienna, a little bit of the burnt umber with the medium. And just giving a dark background. Notice how I didn't completely cover everything. I left some of that light shining. Now I'm going to come over here and touch into my licorice with that same loaded brush, and we're going to darken some areas even more. And notice that it's mainly around the trunk. Now I want to come down here and here. Remember, there's leaves that come off the back of the trunk. This will help you from having it look too flat. You want to have foliage that comes off the back. All right, but see how that's kind of darkened up some of those areas? A little bit more right in here. Okay, so nothing real spectacular, not too difficult yet. Now I'm going to come and get my Filbert. Now, depending on the size of your tree is going to dictate the size of the Filbert brush you want. In our signature series with Donna, that's a number 10 Filbert. In her regular 1095 pack, I think it is, or 11, I forget what the number is, but anyways, the 10-piece kit, this is a number 8 Filbert, okay? So I'm going to work with the 10, but if you want smaller leaves, you're going to work with a smaller brush, okay? All right, so here we go. I'm going to get my brush damp, and we're going to start with some of our darker colors first. So I'm going to come and get, and I'm loading, and I want to come down just a little more so you can kind of see. I'm going to pull it right up here. All right, so I don't want to get a ton of paint. I just want to get enough that I can work with it, okay? And so this is what it looks like when you're stroking that stroke. You've got the paint on the brush. You're going to touch with the brush is like at a 45-degree angle to your surface. You're going to touch that round edge down and pull slightly as you lift. So touch and lift, and you're pulling when you do that, okay? And what it's doing is kind of creating a little point right in the front, and then the leaf hanging on either side, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start here. Let me get a little more water on my brush, okay? Because I want this a little thin. Okay, so here we go. We're going to touch and just tap coming down that tree. And I want to get a little closer now so you can see, you understand how I'm picking up the paint, just little bits at a time. And when you want the leaves to hang to the right, you're going to tip the brush at an angle like that. So you're just touching the one side, and at this side you're going to tip it to this angle. But see, quickly tapping it. You're just tapping the brush and pulling down slightly when you do that, okay? And that's creating that little pulled down look. Don't get too much paint or it's going to look real heavy and you won't get those pretty streaks, okay? So I'm watching my shape. I'm going to come in here. This is the first pass through. It's going to take several passes. So be patient with me. All right, so I'm looking at my shape and I'm leaving holes for other colors, okay? And as I come out here, I might even just do a little tap or a slip slap with that brush corner as I come to the outside edges. As you're creating your tree design, you want to think about where the light's going to hit it. So as you start to add lighter colors, you're going to focus those on the more concentrated areas. I'm choosing to have the right side of my tree be lit up more so than the left. But can you see how that's just easily adding these little bits of color? You don't have to be, perfect with the brush. Your load doesn't have to be heavy. And I'm coming right through the front. Now see how with that dark background it's actually darkening those strokes, so it's not going to show as vibrantly. And when we get towards the end, you'll see where the magic happens. All right, so I'm trying to quickly do this. So now you see the stroke. I'm just going to back out just a little bit. Still working with the Pueblo. Now, when I come down here to this bottom, let me fill this in real quick here. In the back, they're going to be smaller, so don't hit it quite as hard. And maybe just angle it a little bit to the right, so they look like they're hanging down back there. And angle it to the left on this side, so they look like they're hanging down back there. Okay, so I think that's pretty good for the Pueblo. I'm going to wipe off my brush and I'm going to get my other darker color, which is the engine red. I don't really want to use, well, yeah, I could use medium. A little bit of medium will help that move a little easier. All right, so here I'm going to come in and be a little more selective as to where I'm putting this color, okay? So I'm going to leave some areas where I don't put red. And we'll put other colors in those areas. Bring some to the outside edge. So it's pull, pull, pull. You're just touching and pulling it down. And I feel like with this Filbert, you can get a little more control than with the corner of the brush. So see how I'm just adding it kind of randomly in a little more concentrated clusters. And I might let some of them kind of come together. So I did a cluster right here, let that trail off, and then it comes over here and kind of comes together with this one. So it gets narrow in here, and maybe you bring this one down a little bit so they connect a little bit, okay? A little bit of red back in here. So all I'm doing on the left and right sides is just tilting my turning my brush slightly so that maybe you're getting half that curve instead of the whole curve. But can you see how this is coming together? So all that dark I did in the background, now it's just kind of fading back in there. All right, now I'm going to wipe off my brush and we're going to move to a brighter color now. So I'm going to come and get some orange. This is pure orange. Maybe a little bit of medium. Okay. And we'll see what that looks like. So this is not quite bright enough. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow. This is the moon yellow, and I'm going to work that together with my orange. Can you see that? So I grabbed yellow here and I came over here and kind of worked it together. Okay, and so now, there we go. That's showing up a little brighter. Little bits of yellow, a little bits of orange. I might even grab a little bit of yellow with that red. So blend those colors together. So it gives me maybe a little bit brighter orangey red. Oh, there you go. All right, so now I'm going to start to kind of create the top of my tree. So I'm coming outside those pencil lines and I'm just tapping the very tip, kind of getting a shape here. See that? And then coming out here, getting that shape. So I'm going to start to kind of focus on these areas here. So it's the same stroke over and over again, and it's kind of relaxing. You're just kind of tapping away, layering color. So I'm going to start to brighten up the front of the tree now, right in these little areas. So I'm going to come through the red spots that I put in there. Just making sure I'm filling in the spots that I want to with this orange. Because when we start to get to our yellow, that's when all the prettiness happens. It looks pretty now, but wait till we get to that yellow with some white. I am looking at where I put that background color, you know, the brown, and just kind of making sure I don't have any of those dry edges showing. It should be shading in the background and not actual foliage, okay? Okay, so here we go. I think we've got a pretty good, you can still see some of the branches through. All right, so now you can kind of see that shape, and it's not hard lines. And I'm past my pencil edges, and we're going to start to soften these out a little bit, okay? So just little taps of that color. This is a really great brush once you understand what you can do with it. Okay, so I'm wiping that off. Now I'm going to come get the moon yellow and some white. And I'm going to work those colors together. So I got moon yellow here, a little bit of white there, just blending it on my brush. Okay, so here we go. We're going to come right up here, little short taps, and watch this just light right up. So I'm looking at the shapes of my sections of my tree. Come into these outside edges. A little more white. And I'm a little heavy on my brush, so I want to kind of wipe some of that off, and then there we go, pick it up. Smaller taps, straight on in the center. You lean to the right on the right side, you lean to the left on the left side. So can you see how that's brightening up some of those spots? So I'm focusing primarily, like I said, on the right side of my tree. Making sure when I touch these, I touch and pull it down when I do. I'm going to come to some straight moon yellow as I come into the middle of my tree. So no more white on there. So not every tree has all these colors, but I could see this looking really pretty even with a spring tree and having little shades, different shades of green, you know, going from dark green to light green. So you have to kind of let all these colors work together. It's best if you can get them to overlay, and you'll get light and dark values, because the yellow is transparent. It's going to come over these darker colors. It's going to change the value. See that? I felt like this was a really good use of this brush for something different. Because we have these brushes, but we don't always know what to do with them. So see how that's filling in? So now what I wanted to do was come get just a little more white with my yellow. I need to mix it with the yellow. You don't want white in there. And you can come back and I even put on the chisel edge of the brush. Grab some other colors now with the color that's on my brush. So I picked up some orange and grab some red. And this red's going to be a little brighter now with all these other colors in there. And you can even lay in some more dark. So I can come back here and pick up some burnt umber and darken up underneath where maybe it's a little muddy looking, and help some of those colors stand out a little better. See there? All right, let's come back to our yellow and white. Get a little bit of orange and just touch it in here. A little bit of red. Okay, so now let's address the center, because we've kind of got this outlined, right? We've got an orange outline on there and this is looking really dark. So now what we want to do is create the fronts of these clusters of leaves hanging towards you. So that's the white and yellow, and then you could put a little orange in there. white, yellow, mix it on your brush. And tap that forward. And pick up some of those other colors and you can bring them right in around it. And that'll help them blend in. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope it's helping you and you're learning something that you didn't know before. So I'm just coming in and picking up different colors now to kind of bring this tree together. So notice it's real dark in here, so I'm going to lighten this up just a little bit. The key is to have that brush straight onto you to get, if you start holding it like a pencil and leaning your hand down, you're not going to get the right look. When you're doing this, the leaves coming straight onto you, you've got to have the brush straight and then tip it side to side, okay? So now I might get a little orange with white. Let's brighten this up a little bit over here. There, now it's starting to look like something. See all those colors? Okay. So I'm just going to pull a few of these down here. Let me darken that up just a little. Let's get some Pueblo with a little bit of burnt umber and come back in here. I'm softening my edges a little bit with just what's left on my brush. There we go. Okay, so let's come back and look at this. I want to break this line up right here, so I'm going to add a little red. And break it up here, because I've got a lot of the same color coming down this side, so add little bits of red will help. There we go. And then I can come in with some brown. All right. So that's our tree. Now, before I finish up, I'm going to get just a little bit of white with the burnt sienna on the end of my brush. And I'm going to come right in here on my tree trunk. And we're going to just on the chisel edge do some detail lines in the trunk of the tree. Grab some of that burnt umber. And then come in with a little bit of licorice and darken up some of those spots on the tree there. See, that makes it look a little more realistic. All right, now what really finishes this off, I know I'm going a little longer than I normally do, is you come in with a script liner and some water and you get an inky blend of the burnt umber and licorice. And now you're going to come and add little branch pieces poking out of the leaves. You can get a little heavier with the brown, with the burnt umber, and you can reintroduce some of those big branches, like right through here. Okay. Just little bits of the branch peeping out here and there. The big ones, you can make, you know, the big trunk pieces. It's good to do that so that it looks like there's some air in between these leaves now that you put them in here. And then pull out and come up underneath some of these areas where the leaves are hanging out. Don't pull it all the way back to the trunk, just little pieces here and there. So that's with the licorice and a little bit of the burnt umber mixed in. And see how that's really making this look a little more realistic. So you just have to think about when you're doing this where your base of your tree is, so you're not making branches that don't go the right direction either. And if you get a little too carried away with that, you can always come back and tap in a few more leaves too. Now, the very end, I came in with a little bit of white and just added a little bit of highlight to these so they don't look flat. And that white will tone down after it dries. And you don't do it to every single branch, but just here and there. Okay, so there you go. That is how you do a tree, leaves on the tree with a filbert. And you can come back in after you get that all done. I like to come back in and then just soften out these edges a little bit more. Oops, that's a lot of water on that. Just around the outside edges. Tapping that brush. Make it look more tree-like and not cut off. And then you can go across some of those branches too. Okay. Well, like I said, I hope that helped you learn something new about your filbert brush and what you can do with it.